Hi viewers, my name is Luna and welcome to my personal channel. Today I'm going to be filming a couple of videos for you. I think I have about 5 planned, so it should be a good time. I'm finally getting content on my site. So the first video that we're going to do is for the YouTube Pagan 2018 challenge. I am a couple of weeks behind. You're supposed to be doing 2 to 3 videos every month. I missed A and B, and I think we're up to D now since it's ending. We're like in the middle of February, towards the end of February. So I'm going to be doing some catch up on that. The first video you're going to see is going to be A, which is going to stand for altar. So we're going to take a tour of my altar. Some of you have seen it. If you've watched my in bulk video, you've seen the top of it, but I'm gonna, get down deep into the nooks and crannies and kind of show you the magical supplies that I've been building for the last 13 or so years. Okay, so first, you're going to notice the top of my altar. I'm gonna just do a scan real quick so you can see it pretty much in its entirety. There it is. My altar stands on this blue cabinet that I got for, I think, like 130 to 150 bucks at a, what are they called? Like a refurbished store, like an antique shop kind of thing where they refurbish the furniture. I love it. It's got a lot of, let me get in real close. It's got a lot of like dings in it, and it's also this like blue over red color, which I think is really cool. And it's got some really nice like detailing in the drawers, and these are all made of metal, which is really cool. It's like wrought iron. So that's where my altar sits, and in my apartment it sits next to my bed. There's not a lot of space in my apartment. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment, so I kind of like make do with the space that we have right now. We're hoping to get a bigger apartment sometime later this year. So that's one of my big witchy goals for the year, and hopefully that happens along with getting a new job. But anyway, back to my altar. So if you've watched my in bulk video, you know that this tree signifies all of the elements and the way that I call them in. I light a candle. They're little tea lights from Yankee Candle in each of these. They're black. They're the Halloween scent because black candles are really hard to find, and I really like the moonlit scent that they are. So that's the way that I call my elements in. We've got earth at the top, and then fire, air, water, and then spirit. Depending on my mood or the color associations, those may change, but those are what they are right now. Next to it I have this cool kind of 2-sided dream catcher that I'll pull out so you can see it. I got this at Pagan Pride in Maryland this year. The envelope that sits right here is from a spell that I did about wanting to celebrate each of the Sabbats. So far that's been working out for me. I am getting ready to finish some of my in bulk stuff today because in bulk for me didn't really feel like in bulk towards the beginning of February. So I wanted to save it for a more like astrologically appropriate time, which is right around like the 13th, 14th, so we're right on schedule for that. I showed you one of the crafts that I'll be doing in my in bulk video, and I'm going to be doing a guided pathway with the candles in this bowl that I also explained in my in bulk video. I've got my candles, my candle snuffer, this nice flower vase that I also got at the dollar store, and I have my tarot cards out because I am doing a intuitive badass class with Jess Carlson. So we're learning how to read the tarot. It's my first introduction to the tarot. I have a couple of decks that you'll see in a minute, but I've never really worked with the Rider-Waite style deck. That's the card that I pulled this morning. So it's definitely been an adventure for me, and it's also been like my first real step into all things like witchy and pagan, which I'll get to in another video that I'll be doing hopefully today. And then my working candle and my lighter. Fun fact about me, I absolutely hate fire, and I didn't realize this until recently. I'm going to show you a quick view of what it looks like normally. Excuse it right now, it's kind of a mess because I've been digging around in it a lot recently, but it's very dark, so I'm going to be pulling some things out to show you guys in better light. But those are the two shelves. And then I've got this pull-out drawer, which is really nice, which holds some things. And then this is like the underneath like open space. And I have another, you can't really see it really well, I have another little couple of shelves, couple of drawers rather, in there. So I'm going to start pulling things out section by section, and we'll take a deeper look at like what exactly my altar contains. Okay, so getting started with what's in my drawer, I have usually that lighter that you just saw on the top of my altar sits in that drawer, as well as a wooden spoon that I plan on engraving and decorating later. I got this for like $1 at Walmart, but it's one of the really sturdy kind. I got this selenite wand from an ex-boyfriend now, a couple of years ago. It's still in the plastic wrap because selenite is one of those stones that really chips really easily, and I've been waiting to take it out of that plastic for a really good purpose. So it's got a really cool spiral design. It kind of reminds me actually of like a unicorn horn, which I think is really neat. And then we have my knife. I don't use an athamate in my practice. I don't really agree with, or like, it's not that I don't agree with it, it's that it's not useful to me to have a knife or something in my practice that doesn't have a purpose. What I mean to say is, like, athamates have a purpose. Their purpose is directing energy, but if I'm going to use a knife, I really, in my practice, want to be able to use a knife that can be able to cut things. And by cut things, I don't mean like sacrifices or anything like that. I mean, I want to be able to like cut up my herbs and really, really utilize that tool for more than just something that's used to direct energy, wherein I would use something like a wand. This is a fake crystal at the end of it. I think it's just something that's glued on, and this is fake leather wrap. But this is the only wand that I currently have, and I actually got this at the Quidditch World Cup because in college I played Quidditch, and I went to the Quidditch World Cup, which in that year was in South Carolina. So I have this really nice velvet bag that says Alavan's Master Wand Makers, and they made that for me, and most of the time that wand sits in that bag. I haven't really used it for ritual purposes yet, but it's something that I really feel called to. There's a lot of stuff crammed into my altar, so I wanted to take this one shelf at a time so I could really talk about everything. So again, something that you saw on my altar was my tarot cards. This is my Rider-Waite style deck. This is the Shadowscape Tarot, which is absolutely gorgeous. Tons of fairies and foxes. I'm really connected to foxes. So this was my first deck that was purchased by my mother for Christmas one year. And this little pin right here, if this would focus. Come on, focus. There we go. This little pin that has kind of like a rainbow top is used for inscribing candles and other things that I would need to do, you know, like engraved writing on. I got this at Pagan Pride. It was really cheap. I think it cost me like 50 cents or something. But it's really beautiful, and I plan on using that in some candle spells. Next we have some ground sage. I'm doing a practice of learning how to use herbs, and I'm learning how to use herbs that can specifically be used in cooking because I'm kind of a kitchen witch, and I also want to be able to use things that just can really be easily found. I'm not really interested in like the esoteric kind of herbs or like the really expensive, really exotic herbs. I'm more interested in things that you can use in your everyday. That's kind of, I have a practical practice, is what I'm trying to build. I have a little jar of salt. I love these little mason jars. I got this at like a Michael's craft store. They're really solid, and I like to have salt on the go. Being able to travel with my tools is also really important to me. I have some bigger sea salt from, again, that herbal practice that I was learning. That was from earlier this year. I have a jar of what is melted snow from not this past winter, but the previous one. So there's only a little bit left in the jar, but I was working with the element of snow last time I had touched that. Then I have a little jar of vanilla beans, the organic kind, and there's 2 of them in this jar, so a very small amount, but again, that's also part of my herb collection. I got this little pumpkin at, again, like an AC Moore, like Joann's craft store kind of place, but that sat on my altar at Samhain. I have a jar of black pepper. It's just your average, like, table black pepper, nothing special. I have a candle holder. I have a jar of cinnamon sticks. I got these labels at AC Moore, and the jars I think also, but I got the cinnamon sticks at a local grocery store. I have a jar of honey. This is really cool because my uncle, who lives down in Florida, actually is a beekeeper, like part-time. That's what he really enjoys doing. So I get jars of organic honey and honeycomb, usually from my mom, who goes down and visits them. So I have that, because honey is really important to my practice. I have a star-shaped candle holder that I got at Goodwill. Sorry, these are kind of like dusty. I should have cleaned these off. Spare candle holder that I also got at Goodwill. I have a jar of bay leaves. Big jar of those. I have back here, I have the Shadowscapes Companion, which is the companion book to my tarot deck, which I think I'm going to get rid of because I'm learning how to read without the books, so I don't think I'll need this as a reference guide. And then I have Earth Magic by Stephen D. Farmer, and this was my first Oracle deck that I got during my year in a day, when I was doing my year in a day practice, that I'll talk about a little bit more in a later video. Let me see if I can just, like, open it up. I'll show you some of the cards. They have really, really beautiful artwork, and the cards are a great size. My hands are really small, but so they're huge in my hands. But I absolutely love and recommend this Oracle deck. It is amazing. It is one that I connected to right away. Actually, a really quick story about this deck in particular. This card, when I first got the deck, when I first pulled the cards out of the box, this card was stuck to the bottom, and I actually had to, like, pry it out. And then I would do readings every day when I was working with this deck. And every single day I pulled this card for a solid month, like literally 30 days of pulling this card, to the point where, like, I would shuffle and joke around, and I'd be like, oh, like, I would have other people shuffle it, and I'd be like, all right, let me see if I can pull this card out of the deck. And every single time I pulled this card for an entire month, and, like, it was to the point where I had to take it out of the deck so that I could use the rest of the deck. So this card permanently sits out of the deck because I'm so strongly connected with this card that I can't use the deck without it being gone from the deck. So that's a little fun story about that. And then the next one that I have is a really important deck for me. Only a limited number of these were made, and they were only available through Etsy orders at the time. But this is made by, it says Evan Sneeringer on the deck, but her real name is Kimmy. She also goes by Autumn Star Moon. She was the lovely little witch. She was huge on YouTube a couple of years ago. She has since stopped using social media. She was a huge, important part of my life. I will talk about her in a later video more in depth, but this is one of those decks that's just, it's really important to me because of the connection that I had with the creator of the deck, and this was her Etsy card with a little thank you note on the back. And here's just some of the artwork from this deck. She designed all of these cards herself. She did the backs, which the backs are really cool. I also like that there's no one way is the right way. You can read them in reverse as well. And this is one of those decks that's just, it's really special. It's very magical to me. So the next deck that I have in my repertoire, I guess you could say, is the Sage Goddess Gemstone Oracle cards. This is going to be hugely important again in another video that I'm doing. I keep hinting at all these videos that I'm going to be making today, but that's some really exciting news that I can't wait to share with you guys. And it has a picture of this stone on the back of it, and then it has a little bit about like what the stone means and like how it's used and things like that. This is a really pretty, very cool deck. I also like the way it opens. I like this little flappy thing right here. It magnetically closes, but Sage Goddess and gemstones in particular are something that's going to be hugely important to my practice coming up. So this was a really good thing that I had gotten. Finally, in my tarot collection is the Raven Edgar Allan Poe playing cards. It's 2 decks, which is really nice. These are just playing cards, but playing cards was what I had originally wanted to read when I was learning to read tarot. I really wanted to learn like the traditional just playing card style, which I will be able to read after my Intuitive Badass class is over. Basically, what the Intuitive Badass class is it teaches you how to read tarot intuitively instead of by the book. So I can't wait to dive into this after I'm done with that class. That class ends later this month. Okay, so this is the general overview of everything that was in the second shelf of my altar. A lot of this is going to be crystals and stones, so I'm going to try to move quickly through this section, just because there's not really a lot to say quite yet. The first thing, this is a picture of a fairy that I actually got from Mystic Moon Media. She's the woman who made my Book of Shadows, which I'll be getting to in my next video. But this was just like a little free gift that came in that package. So I have that down there. I put it on my altar during like summertime or when I'm connecting to the water elements, which is a huge part of my practice. So I really like this piece. I have a hunk of citrine that I was using for a crystal grid for a while, of like a raw crystal grid, for abundance. So I have that. I think this is some sort of jasper. I actually forget what exactly this is. But I have one of these spheres. It's very heavy. It sits on a little base. This was one of the first crystals that I had ever gotten. It's a raw piece of amethyst. This is a bag that I have yet to open. It's a bunch of, I think this is upside down. It's a bunch of chakra stones. They're all tumbled. They're sitting in rice because they're cleansed. But that's something that I'm going to be working with pretty soon in my practice. I forget exactly. I want to say this is. It's not selenite. I think it's like angelite or something like that. Like some sort of angel. It's a half geode, which is pretty cool. Very pretty. Tiny piece of grape agate, I believe. But that's a really cool piece. It kind of doesn't show up well on the camera, but it's very bubbly. This is blue goldstone. It's a very sparkly piece. It looks really dull on the camera, but it's got all these little like sparkles in it that catch the light. I honestly forget what this is. For a long time I was collecting crystals, and like I really like, I plan to get like really deep into crystals, but I stopped. Again, I'll explain why in a little bit. But this is a hunk of just clear quartz. I have 2 of these. I have a bigger piece here that somebody had given me. I think it was like an ex-boyfriend or something. I had an ex-boyfriend whose dad was really into crystals, so he knew how important they were to me, and wanted to give me some of the crystals as well. So I had gotten a lot as like gifts from him. We're no longer together. He was a couple of boyfriends ago. This is a piece of rough rose quartz that sits on a little velvet bag for person. This is actually one of my favorite pieces. This is just a rock from my driveway, but it's a perfect circle and a really good palm stone. I'd eventually wanted to like put a pentacle on it, but I had never gotten around to it, or I had like changed my mind anytime I'd wanted to do it. But this is just one of those really good stones to hold on to and to use in meditation. So this is actually one of my favorite pieces. And it was just something that I had found outside one day. I have a lot of these little bottles of various crystals. Like this one is aventurine. This one is just generic crystal, so it's probably just like clear quartz. Rose quartz, fluorite, red jasper, amethyst chips, tiger's eye. You have a bigger bottle of aventurine and 2 bottles. I believe these are the same thing. No, this is turquoise and this is blue topaz. I eventually want to use these for like elixirs and things like that, but again, I was given a bunch of bottles of these. Oh, I have another one. Some citrine. I have honey calcite, which I absolutely love. This is a really cool stone. I have a bunch of pieces of rough citrine. Again, this was part of the crystal grid that I was doing. Alright. Carnelian. This is amazing. It reminds me so much of like the planet Mars. And this is one of those stones that really helps me get organized. Because it really lights that fire under my butt and helps me put things together. So this is a really important piece to me. This huge beauty is Septarian, and then this is something different, but I forget what it's melded with. But I really love this piece, especially because like this black line follows it all the way around the outside, and it's just it's gorgeous. This is my dragon's egg, and I love this piece. This is one of my favorites. I have this. This is aragonite. Or Oregonite, however you pronounce it. This is from Sage Goddess? Sage Goddess. These are pumpkins that she was doing for Samhain, or the autumn equinox at one point, and I had gotten this. I had only gotten this a couple months ago. I found them on her site again for like $15 a piece. So I got one because pumpkins are something that I absolutely love. I forget what stone this is, but this is an offering bowl that I got from Kimmy, or Autumn Star Moon, or the Lovely Little Witch, whatever name you want to call her, because she's no longer online, and she went by several. But I got that from her at one point when she was selling crystals. A couple little bottles of more of the stone chips. I have a lot of them, as you can see. And a part of the way finished going to be burned crystal grid that I was working on from AC Moore. This was like $1, I think. This is my Yule goat. Surprisingly enough, I got him from IKEA. My boyfriend paid $2 for him, and I'd seen them all around, and I absolutely love Finland. I love Scandinavian countries. I really like the culture. So this was hugely important to me, and we were walking around IKEA, and I had kept seeing them, and I didn't see any for sale. So he went back and he ran throughout the entire IKEA, didn't tell me where he was going, and he had argued with one of the salespeople to pull it off display so that I could have it. And they ended up, like, as an end of the year sale, giving it to him for just a couple of bucks. But it's really soft, it's very important to me, and he's something that sits on my altar during the winter solstice. And then a couple of months ago, I found these. As you can see, I saved them 70% off, or 75% off. These are going to be used for, like, Mabon and the autumn equinox and Litha. These are going to be used for my autumn festivals as part of my harvesting. And I also love that they're fake, because I'm actually allergic to gluten, so having like wheat stalks and things is not really the best for me to be breathing in. So I got 2 of these, and they're really awesome for just decorating my altar. So I have those. I found those at a grocery store randomly. And then these are the rest of the labels that I put on my bottle that I found at AC Moore. And I'm just going to do a quick scan of some more of my crystals. At some point I really want to do like an in-depth look at them, but for now that's just my container of other like little tumbled crystals. And then that same ex-boyfriend had gotten me a pendulum that I clearly have never used because it's still in the bag. My pièce de résistance, as it were, is this amethyst rosary that I made. They're mala beads. There's 108 of them, and they're all real amethyst, and I used a little purple leaf, and I made the tassel and everything. These are something that I was really into making for a long time, but I could never sell any of them on my Etsy or anything like that. So if you see this and you want one, please let me know, because there's something that I spend a lot of time on, and I really, really enjoy making these, and I put a lot of like good energy into them. So if you're interested, please let me know. I would love to make you one. Okay, and then this is the last bit of everything that came out of that like open space. Again, there's a lot of stuff crammed in here. A lot of it's candles, some of it's oils, and then it's just random odds and ends things. So we'll take a look at that. This was a sampler perfume that I got in my Sage Goddess kit when I ordered that pumpkin from her website. This was some free sampler incense that I got at Pagan Pride when I ordered my the pin. When I got the pin, I have a lot of aromatherapy oils. Okay, well, not like a lot compared to some people. For me, who's never really practiced, I think I have a lot. I have some lemon here, some eucalyptus, which is really important, sweet orange, cedarwood, lemongrass. I'm just realizing you can't see these. Lemongrass, cedarwood, and then another bottle of lemon, because I really like those zesty scents, apparently. A jar of birthday candles, because they're really good for just like really quick spells. This scent from Walmart called Magic Pumpkin that I got over Samhain. I have some Dragon's Blood incense and some full moon incense. I have some long sticks of white sage, which is really good for smudging. I got a candle at Pagan Pride that says road opener. I plan on doing a job spell for that. Pot holder, because you never know when things that are hot are going on your altar, and it's good to be prepared. I found this at the dollar store the other day. I'm going to use this for my Ostara altar this year, but it's a little egg candle that I thought was really cute. Just a black candle called Dreamy Summer Nights. A holiday candle called Mistletoe and Pine, which is really refreshing. 2 boxes of tea lights that I got at Michael's, but they're Yankee Candle Candy Corn and the Moonlight. Half of these are sitting in that element tree that you saw. Then just some miscellaneous candles in a giant Yankee Candle jar that had been cleaned out. Some wax melts. This bunny that I got last weekend, and I'm going to write like Happy Ostara or something like that on it, and that's going to be used for my Ostara. That's going to be used for my Ostara altar. And then I just have some tin foil and some Epsom salts because I was doing a fire ritual recently, and those were pieces of that. And then I've just got some cross-stitching stuff because I'm really into knot magic, and cross-stitching is a really good way to kind of infuse magic into projects. So I was working on a design for Imbolc that I still haven't finished yet because it's taking me longer than I expected. So that's what that's from. So that is it. That is everything that was on and inside of my altar space. So I hope you enjoyed it, or like, I really enjoy making these videos because I really enjoy watching these videos. I really like knowing what other people are using, and just, I like looking at magical stuff. So I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in a couple of minutes when we film my next one. Bye! Oh, one other thing that I forgot to mention while going through my altar stuff was that I basically use my altar as a reminder space. It's a place that houses all of my tools, and I use it to decorate for like the Sabbats and everything, but it's not something that I work on all the time. And I wanted to make that distinction because my altar is a place of devotion. It's something where I can pause for a minute and I can remind myself, you know, what I'm supposed to be working on and everything. So it's more of a reminder than it is a working space. Working spaces, sometimes I'll use my yoga mat if I'm, you know, doing grounding exercises, or, you know, I'm doing a yoga program right now, so my yoga mat is a place where I come and, you know, I'll draw my daily reading and I'll do some of that spiritual work. But it's not something that's done at my altar behind me. Another thing is, like, I have a lot of these little tables. You know, I've gotten some for like $10 at IKEA, or, you know, a couple of dollars here or there at Walmart. I will usually like pull those out. I'm actually filming on one right now. I'm using it to hold up my camera. I'll usually pull those out if, you know, I need to work on like something crafty, or, you know, I'll just set it up real quick as an altar. I'm going to be looking for outdoor spaces in my area where I can do some, you know, outdoor rituals, you know, coming up. But my altar is not something that I work at. And that was one of the things that was always like really difficult for me growing up, was because I felt like I was either, you know, in the broom closet and I didn't have an altar, or, you know, I always just kind of like pulled it out when I needed one. When I was much younger and I was doing, you know, some rituals when I was like 13, 14, 15, I would take those like TV tables, and I would use those for a lot of my workings, because they were something, you know, that I could pop out real quick and then fold up when I didn't need them anymore, and they were just real quick, you know, altar spaces, and, you know, I would cleanse them I would cleanse them and I would work on them, and then when I was done, you know, magic's gone, my altar was gone, and that's really how it worked. And that's not something that's always like touched on in some of the books. Some of them will talk about temporary altars, but not a lot of them. A lot of them are like, oh, you need to have this big massive table, or, you know, you don't have one at all and you hide it in your closet or something. I never really worked that way. I am much better at like pulling something out when I need it and then putting it away, or, you know, using my natural spaces that exist, like my countertops or whatever, as a place where I do my working. Because I don't necessarily believe that I have to have something that is super sacred in order to do sacred work, because I'm of the belief where everything is sacred, so I should be able to use anything at any time. And maybe, you know, sometimes it just needs to be cleaned up a little bit first, but I believe that you should be able to do your magic wherever, and that's really how I use and view my practice. So my altar is a place where I go to remember, but it's not a place where I go to work. So I just wanted to add that little tidbit in here before we get into my next video, which is going to be on my Book of Shadows and that whole mess. So I'll see you in a few.